Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
Scott.
This week we talk about Exandria Unlimited, Episode 7, Beyond the Heart City, the penultimate episode
of this season.
I'm not sure it felt like a penultimate episode to me.
No, it didn't.
And I was trying to decide whether or not it's because Abria is hoping for another bite at the apple. Because I was thinking about it and like mapping out a story structure. How best to do that? Like, how does she map her adventure path here?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to solve the Ash Mesa seems like that was the conclusion we were going to go with.
Mm-hmm.
And they sort of went off. And I think she prepared for it, but I don't know if that's what she had planned on.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But arguably, we've seen more interesting world building that she may or may not be painting Matt into a corner with. So I'm interested to see how the next one ends.
Yeah.
Just because I don't see how they resolve much of anything. Yeah, Rose, it does feel like there's supposed to be more. And that's why I say if this is an attempt at another bite of the apple.
There's definitely going to be a lot of hanging plot threads at the conclusion of this, of next week, of this mini campaign. But I'm hearkening that back to, at the very beginning, we said this may be a thing where
every August,
September, when Matt, Taliesin, and Marisha would all normally be at Burning Man, a 4 to 8 episode mini adventure.
Yeah.
Where she can play with those, and they can even do an ensemble cast where it rotates.
Yeah.
Because Matt won't be there, obviously, when Burning Man starts back up. 1 or 2 of the regular cast and some, guest stars. Whether Amy and Robbie come back, or
Mika,
Will Friedle, Mary Elizabeth, any of them.
Yeah.
So, and I still... My thought with the hanging plot threads is that it's confirmation that that is going to happen.
It's fair.
Yeah. Now, yeah. So,
well, like, to my mind, the brilliance of having this time slot, this off-season show, was potentially the opportunity to give some of the other players the chance to DM.
Yeah. And they could have a rotating DM for it.
Yeah. Yeah, Rose, I don't know how to feel about the announcement about Robbie taking over for Suma Lee as the narrator for the novel, audio version. I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing is, too, it also frees up 2 months out of the year for the regular cast to do other things and not be as married. They're all like married to the company because it's their company.
Right.
As married to I have to be here every week for...
Right. And it gives them a built-in, you're going to have 8 weeks off.
Yeah.
Because, yes, it could be none of the cast may be obligated to appear in these break seasons, and it's all guest stars and guest DMs.
Exactly.
Which I could see them doing it that way too.
Yeah.
As part of their community building, that's been part of the channel since before it was Critical Role channel.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, I can see that. But off the bat, during Abria's recap, she used a phrase that I was like, and it was predates the gods' vulgar language. And the reason it sort of stuck out to me is generally gods speak or sing the world into existence.
Well, I mean, it could very well dovetail with the Luxon.
Yeah.
Because the Luxon mythology is that before the gods, the pantheon was there, the Luxon was there, and its song brought, so its language predates the pantheon's vulgar language,
And I was also thinking about primordials.
Yeah.
And that this may be, if this is going to be connected with season 3,
okay,
campaign 3 at all, this sets up campaign 3 as a potential Titanomachy, where the primordials, the gods before the gods, fight the gods.
Yeah.
So on that level, it was kind of interesting. But the flip side of that is this was the most adversarial Abria has been.
Yeah.
And that phrase, to me, is what the foundation of that shift was.
Okay.
Because basically from that moment on, she's out trying to get him. To where at the, in the battle, she's like, I'm trying to commit some murders here. Or something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to commit a murder.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it started there. Which, live viewing, I didn't notice it. It was on the rewatch.
Okay.
But also, in a subconscious way, setting up, I don't know if you want to call it a trap, or she referred to it as a puzzle of the floating cube.
Yeah.
Which I think has some interesting.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was neat.
But Dariax speaks again to the observer.
Yes.
And there's just, would you call it negotiating over a gift? Or is negotiating too strong of a word?
I think that's a little too strong.
Discussion of,
curiosity about.
Okay.
And I mean, he ends up getting an upgraded spear for his troubles.
Yes. Which I don't think we saw like a benefit of.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, did we? I don't remember.
So he can choose light or heavy for the spear. If it's light, he gets to attack twice.
Oh,
if it's
that's
heavy,
right. That's right.
he doubles the dice.
That's right.
And it's obviously a +4, because when Matt tallied his damage, he said D8, I double it, so that's 16, plus my 2 is 18. She's like, no, it should be +6 now, which means it added +4 to the damage.
Unless she means it also doubles his modifier.
But she went from +2 to +6. That would be tripling the modifier. Because I had to rewind that and watch it a second time to make sure that's what she said.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Unless it's a +2 weapon, and he has a +2 bonus. That would be 4. Doubling that would be 8.
Still doesn't get you to the +6 bonus that she said it was.
Well, if it's a +1, that would be
3.
A 3.
There you go. That could be. But he said his normal bonus was +2.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's quite the spear.
Remind me, is it a bonus action for him to do that? Or just on...
She didn't specify what kind of action it was. She just said, you decide whether it's... So I think... And the way it played out, because as he attacks, he's like... She goes, are you going heavy or light with this? It's as you attack, you get to choose. As part of the attack action. So every attack action, you can switch it up.
Yeah. Well, except presumably if he did heavy first, he couldn't do light.
The next turn?
Like if he somehow got extra attack or something. Like that's where my brain goes, how does this interact with someone who has extra attack?
Yeah,
because,
I mean, does it give them an extra attack? Does it give them a third attack?
Yeah, or 4 attacks.
Or, the high level? Bye.
Yeah.
So does it make the fighter a monk?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and I remember thinking that it had a very exalted feel.
Yeah.
In that he could choose and have it do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now that you say it, yeah, I remember that now. But one of the things that I enjoyed was Abria. My TV's off. No, it's off. I need to remote for the. We're going to turn it back on. Thank you. I'm sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. But she was playing with an idea that I've wanted to play with. Abria was. Being that voice in the players' heads.
Yes.
And
I think most DMs have played with that idea. I know I've been toying with it for the upcoming Ravenloft campaign that I'll be running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sort of the idea of like the incubus or succubus, the devils and demons, whispering in the ear of people. I've never done it because there's a big part of me that is resistant to it, just because it gets very close to a gray area with player agency.
Yeah.
And to me, it undercuts the notion of alignment. The cosmic importance of it.
Yeah. I see that, definitely.
It's not a way that a lot of people play these days. Most people ignore alignment. So, I don't know, maybe... But that's why I've never pulled the trigger on doing that.
Gotcha.
Is those two principal things.
Yeah.
And arguably, the alignment one also kind of flirts with free will, too. Because if it's this devil thing that's tempting you or whispering in your ear, then it's not you. And how much free will did you have? But in terms of accessing a character's inner monologue, it was great.
Yeah.
And if I could find a way to do that exclusively when I do it, I might try to do it more.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's useful around a table that's not broadcasting.
Yeah. It's true.
In a broadcast sense, these are the only way, really, to get at those inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Where in a lot of film, TV, scripted stuff, you'll have another character to bounce that off of.
Right.
In Iron Man, it was Jarvis.
Correct.
Because otherwise, Tony would have been alone,
mm-hmm.
doing basically nothing, or interacting with nobody. And while The Martian proved you could do that,
mm-hmm.
to a certain extent, even Mark in that film is talking to the camera. He's giving us his internal monologue because he's making a log of his efforts.
Right.
He's doing the astronaut thing. How you would do that around a table, I don't know. Especially in a narrative sense.
Yeah.
Like, we will occasionally... Someone around the table will say, my character, I think, is kind of thinking this.
Yeah.
And as an exercise to try to get into that headspace. And also as a means to help the other players, their characters, perhaps pick up on a nonverbal cue.
Yeah.
That something might not be right with
that
them.
May have been missed. Yeah.
Yeah. To invite that conversation. But yeah. So I wonder if we'll get more of that, because we seem to have been as the episodes have gone on.
Yeah.
Since the temptation of the crown began. It's been happening more and more. So, I don't know. We'll see. And I look forward to seeing how she does it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because she seemed to reward Robbie after that interaction with I say reward. And there was a lot of potential trigger warnings for people with arachnophobia in this episode. I pull silk off my eye.
Spiders come out of my mouth.
Yeah. And that got the most visceral reaction out of Liam that we've seen thus far.
Oh.
He was like, nope. And Dorian illustrates for me the importance of prestidigitation, especially for an Eldritch Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Finds his axe covered in viscera and gore. All clean.
Yep. And yes, I love that description. You pick it up. It's got 17 pounds of a man. That's a huge chunk of a person. That is not just a few guts.
No.
That is like a leg.
Well, and based on where he struck him, it was probably the rib cage and upper organs therein.
Yeah, 17 pounds worth of a man. Wow.
Yeah. Which also leaves it open for he, the thrower, to remember where he threw it and what part it might be in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the stuff with Dorian reminded me of. Now I'm going to struggle to remember his name. The father in the Dragon Prince, the Seer.
I haven't seen that, so.
Starts with a V. Okay. Damn. Anyway, when he makes a deal with the Dark Elf on the other side of the mirror, there's some body horror insect stuff that happens. It's for children and teenagers, so it's not graphic or particularly gross, but
right.
It weaves a cocoon over and in his eye so that he can see things. And Dariak's pulling the thread out, sort of, oh, if only he could have done that.
Yeah.
You know? And that was a corruption story.
Okay, nice.
His arc was. Which kind of is funny that I think about that because, you know, Avatar: The Last Airbender was such a big deal for Marisha and the influence for the Arashari.
Yeah.
And Dragon Prince is made by like half the people who made Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay.
And come to think of it, it's actually potentially closer to what Abria is going for with her depiction of magic and like the primordial forces of things. Now that I'm thinking about it.
I'll have to check that out.
I shall have to ruminate on that for episode 8. But yeah, and then right after the reward of pulling the Spider Queen's influence off of him, he decides to steal what would be given.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I guess you're not getting that alignment back.
Nope. Let's just lean into that one there.
Yeah. It's like,
why did I go straight to steal?
Well. And I love that. Orm's right behind you. Oh.
Yeah. That was something in Liam being like, and you turn around and Orm's right. Like, I've wanted to do that in games sometimes because there's been times where I've been like, I'm waiting and so much is happening. But I always shy away from doing that and then like, oh, you know.
Well, and the great thing about Orm, though, is that he's a half.
Yeah. But it's one of those, does it pull off like that? Or does it pull off like Vex coming out of the tub?
I don't know. That was one of the great moments of Campaign 1.
So. It was, but in the moment, it upset Liam. because he was very adamant. No, you couldn't have been there. That this was.
That's true.
You did that just to do that. You didn't. You had no intention of being there. It very much upset him in the moment.
Yeah, but as a viewer, and
yeah, well, the games I'm in aren't typically for viewers.
That's true. But even at a table, if that happened at a table that I was playing at, I would have been expecting it, just because Taliesin, in his reactions and his
right
lines, set her up for that.
Yeah, definitely.
And there are people who have gone back and cut it up and zoomed in on different people, and you can see how long in advance she decides to do that.
Yeah.
And that when Taliesin's talking and delivering lines, the one that gets her especially is, I'm kind of working on something here.
Yeah.
And then when she does it and everyone loses their shit, Travis, again, the avatar of us at the table, jumps up and is yelling, and Taliesin says, I was hoping you'd do it. I was setting you up. So, Liam a little upset that someone stepped on him a little bit.
Well, that's why I tend to shy away from it. I don't want to give anyone that interpretation.
Okay.
But there are definitely been a number of times in our games where I've been wanting to interject or do something, and then I'm too much is, I don't want to interrupt what's going on. I'm it's at this point it would be too much.
Right. Okay. Well, and Taliesin did similar things with Caduceus.
Yeah.
Just deciding that Caduceus heard that.
Yeah.
And then he would say something. And sometimes it was met with, but yeah, I guess it's a similar kind of thing, where Caduceus didn't really sneak around.
Right.
It's just Taliesin rightly decided that since his passive perception is over 20.
And that was kind of what he built.
Yeah.
For, it was my artificer that took and how does this,
Yeah.
I did this because I look at things and just know how they work.
Yeah.
And it gives me the high passive investigation.
Yeah.
Not that I'm opposed to making the roll, but that's why I took this, so that I would have this and just intuitively know how things work.
Yeah. I thought it was funny, and a funny idea, when they brought back the breakfast wine, that Fawn, being so excited, she let out fairy fire.
Yes.
And they sort of tangentially referenced it, but didn't quite land it home. But you made me ink.
Yeah.
From Finding Nemo. I thought that was funny. And makes me think about Drow in a different light. Because Drow get fairy fire.
Yeah.
And darkness. They get to choose which kind of ink they're going to use. But yeah, and the players finally discuss why Opal.
Mm-hmm.
And if memory serves, it's Liam that mentions that it might be Ted, or connected to Ted.
Mm-hmm.
If we get any resolution, it will be of that. Because they are most definitely headed toward the people that tried to take Opal.
Yep.
So, yeah. I think we will find out one way or another what that's about. And whether or not my theory about twins being important, or her mother having her power, last week. Whether or not that holds any water. We did a confirmation of the Iron Authority being servants of the Betrayer Gods. With a strong implication that Durgar will be amongst the population.
And we get that, and then as they're being given things, before they take off, Dariax really gets to shine.
His natural one.
Well, he starts with using the circlet to hold the food. Let's just trash the gift in front of the giver.
Yeah.
But then, yes, the natural one resulting in a 0 insight on how. Yeah. Agent of Darkness or How to Scar a Child.
And I wonder if she went with playing into his fears because it was a natural one, or if that may have been the result if he had just failed. Because this is an idea I've toyed with insight checks also. The player fails the check. You can tell them whatever you want.
Yeah. I usually go that far only if they fail by a considerable amount, like 5 or more, 10 or more.
Did they completely misread it?
It's hard to separate how low it was versus the fact it was a natural 1. Yeah. But given that the net result was 0, I think you have to do something.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Now, likely you're not going to get a 0 unless you roll a natural 1 and have a negative modifier. Although Grog could have done it on a 2 with an intelligence check.
Yes. I think he did.
Yeah.
Once.
He may have, but
yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a net 0.
That's true. And Orem prevents mail fraud. I kind of wonder if Liam was having flashbacks of Bo opening letters. Because that's sort of where my brain went.
Yeah.
And
he was wearing the Keyfish shirt.
I didn't even... Yeah. But I mean, we've talked about how Liam seems the most continually tied to those characters.
Yeah.
Than any other player.
Which was the other really funny line when Liam jumps and she makes the comment about just playing into the Keyfish shirt, and Matt goes, I mean, we're practically mortals instead of we're practically gods. Third level, you're practically mortal. Not quite, but
yeah. Yeah. But we learned that it is a letter from Elam.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly a love letter? Do you think that's true?
I don't know. It very well could be, which would set this up to be the Allura and Kima of EXU.
Okay. Fair. But I think I'm with Rose that it felt like a cover-up.
Yeah.
It's a little too convenient, a little too right away.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I didn't really get that feeling, but I mean, it could be, sure.
All I'm saying is somebody in that city was in touch with the people that were hunting that tried to get Opal. And the only two people they talked to were Elam and the Tetrarch.
True. But to be fair, it was stated that a lot of heads are turning as you walk through the city when they entered, because you're the first new people since Firai showed up. So any number of people could have seen Opal, who does not have an indistinct appearance, and been like, hey, yo, that chick you're looking for, she's here.
Fair. But I'm just reminded that nobody bothered to make an insight check.
True.
They were distracted by food and the cute little puppy.
Which, are valid distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Abria is trying to parallel Theodorai's journey towards her sister with Opal's.
Mm-hmm.
And Opal has not connected with that. She hasn't sort of internalized this parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And that Theodorai left them because her sister was alive, even though she thought she was dead. Opal still is in this idea that her sister's dead. Or is somehow suffering.
Yeah.
Because of her.
I don't think she thinks Ted's dead, because she asked Ted, are you dead? And Ted's like, I don't know.
She doesn't ask that unless she thinks it. You ask the question hoping to get a no.
Fair. But I don't think it crossed her mind until she found out Ted was inside her.
Yes. And that's where her downward emotional spiral started. And I thought her saying, I kind of want to go home, was great.
Yeah.
And the fact that Dorian reacted the way that he did, why? Very perfectly highlighted that inner voice conflict he had earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Which also is where I get back to, it's great to help get into character to have those moments.
It also drops a hint about his home life.
Yeah.
Why would you want to go home? We're away from home.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other parallel in the group now that we've seen between Dorian and Dariax.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them have more successful, better thought of older brothers.
Yeah.
They are the younger disappointment. So I don't know if that will come up in episode 8 in any sort of upfront, meaningful way, but it was an interesting parallel that I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And their names just happen to But it does make me like often what is discussed is the constraints under which a DM will make people create characters.
Mm-hmm.
And for certain campaigns, for a certain story, you tell the players you need to have X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Or A, B, and C. You all need. Or you two need this, and the other two can have, any mix of whatever.
Yeah.
Just so that it becomes pertinent to the story. As a means to have that background important to the game without having to reverse engineer it.
Right.
When I've been drafting adventures to potentially publish, I sometimes end up in a circular thought process where sort of giving guides about backgrounds,
mm-hmm.
like how certain backgrounds will fit into this. And I think I'm going back and forth with myself on it. I don't know whether or not to concentrate on a class, because there are fewer classes than backgrounds.
Right.
As a means to help the players integrate into the adventure better. But I think Abria, in this case, gave everybody, or certain individuals, prompts.
Mm.
And that's why Fiodorai has a twin, Opal has a twin.
Gotcha.
Dariax and Dorian both have overly successful...
They're the family disappointment.
Yeah. Which is interesting and not a tack that most DMs do.
Mm-hmm. And Orem and Fern sent on walkabouts for whatever reason.
Yeah. So yeah, all these parallels that we find because of Matt made the comment early on about their names were chosen in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no cooperation. There's no conspiring.
Collaboration.
No collaboration between anybody making the characters. But I think Abria giving them prompts to say, include this in your backstory. Like, she probably didn't tell them exactly how.
Yeah.
But here's a piece that I want you to have in your backstory. Which I think, again, is an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than saying, usually how it goes is this is going to be a heist campaign or a heist short campaign, one shot, what have you. So somebody needs to have thieves' tools proficiency, or somebody needs to have this,
right?
That kind of thing. So we'll see if any of this plays out, and if we ever even get an answer to this as well. But they get to Nidal Sarket.
Mm-hmm.
And my hackles were raised from the beginning. And I just had Ian Malcolm in the back of my head at the dinner. They were so preoccupied of whether or not they could. They didn't think it should
stop to think that they should.
Yeah. And I'm just like, leave it alone. She gave it to you as a landmark. Mark it and move on. I was just like, go. Just go. Which, of course, they can't because they're players. And there's a map there.
Yeah. The map's there for a reason, right?
Yeah, so they begin to interact with it. And as a set piece, it's cool. I think if I was a player at the table, one of the things that I would have asked is like proportions and how fast it's spinning.
Mm.
Because it's like, is this the cube is obviously a representation of something. Is it Exandria?
It's the Hellraiser puzzle box.
That may be closer to reality. I mean, the only reason I say it might not be is the interesting depictions of the gods on it.
Yeah. So it's legally distinct.
No, not even that. Because a major detail is on that. And nobody at the table seems to have picked up on it, or at least voiced anything about it. And that is all of the betrayer gods, every one of them, are depicted before the betrayal.
Mm.
So this is like way back.
Yeah.
Which is why the thought occurred to me of the primordials.
Right.
Coming to destroy everything. Or to wreak havoc in the gods' creation. Because they've been behind the divine gate for so long. Maybe the barriers that they put on them are wearing down.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this is important. And the prophecy that you will do great or terrible things. Great might have been going back and putting a seal on the thing, and going south leads to terrible things.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about this low level, short run, they can unleash hell, literally, and die. And if they come back to it, they can play different characters, potentially.
Yeah.
But that was the big reveal of this episode.
Right.
Like, we know a lot of the stuff that has been being talked about is like way before pre-calamity.
Right.
Like, they were supposedly gone before even that happened.
Right.
So, but it was interesting to me that the betrayer gods are depicted before their betrayal.
Yeah, that's definitely,
and that will be significant. And also, no one at the table thought to ask, why has no one opened this in the millennia that it's been here?
because
the whole city around it is gone.
Unlike players and unlike real people, or unlike players and unlike movie tropes, most people don't read the fucking words.
Well, that gets to why I was tickled pink and loved it, because it is the classic read the words trap.
Yeah. And, well, Rob even says, hey guys, maybe we don't read the words aloud until we figure out what's going on.
which is why she had Fern? I think it was Fern or Opal make a wisdom save after they succeeded on the Arcana check.
Yeah.
Because these things want you to read them. And
Yep.
once you have put yourself to try to read them, it's real hard not to.
Yeah.
And like the mummy played with this. What harm ever came from reading a book? And they do, don't read the book!
Yeah. Necronomicon.
Yeah. Army of the Dead, yeah. Or Evil Dead. And Army of Darkness. There we go. But players' curiosity is the best bait for any trap.
Easily.
I almost got a TPK because of that. And all it was, they had to go down, face several hallways where their dark vision didn't reach the end. And a couple of pressure plates that set off traps further down. So they're in the mindset that this place is trapped. I describe the nature of the trap to them as they see an iron door, and there are 6 holes in the floor, inch diameter, floor and ceiling. The door opens. It's a little stiff. It's not locked. Just a little stiff. It opens. They look down. It's a short hallway. They can see the end of it, even with their dark vision.
Okay.
And they see another hallway that comes back. Goes the direction they came from. So they walk in. They're thinking, there's got to be a secret door. So they say, I'm going to walk down to the end of the hall and look for a secret door. It's okay. Roll perception. It's good enough that they see the pressure plate at the end of the hallway. Confirm for them, there's no secret door. They just see the pressure plate. I'm going to go down to the other hall. Roll really well. Same thing. Pressure plate. And no obvious secret door. And I'm thinking, they're just going to walk away. They figured this out. There's no secret door. They're just going to leave. Okay, one of us go stand on that pressure plate. One of us go stand on this pressure plate, and the other person's going to stand by the door at the opening of the hallway. Which, of course, they step on the 2 pressure plates. Those holes on the outside of the door, bars come up, and they hear the door, iron on iron scraping as the door swings closed. And then they start jumping on the pressure plates. And I tell them, the person standing by the door, I say, you see, as they're jumping, the floor's doing this. And he tells them, I'll jump on it. Hey, you jump on it, the hallway's filled with gas. Make Constitution saving throws. And it almost killed 2 of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was... And I was so happy because I did nothing except allow their curiosity to bloom. And that's basically what Abria did with this. Show them something weird. Something they might struggle to understand. And then watch it unfold. You have now broken the universe. Congratulations. They didn't die, and although Abria was trying to murder them with whatever guardians those were, some sort of golem, was my interpretation.
Yeah.
But it couldn't have been a proper stone golem because those are CR 9, I think.
Right.
13. Iron is 13, I think. Stone is 8 or 9. So multiples of them they would have died.
Yeah.
Although maybe a gargoyle. Like a reskinned gargoyle
Yeah.
with the con save maximum hit point reduction power. Which is an interesting one. That I've been, like, since Thursday, and I've been trying to design monsters for Araku.
Hmm.
I'm like, maximum hit point thing.
That's going to cause players to cry.
Yeah. Yeah, especially at low levels, where every hit point is precious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think episode 8, we will have some kind of an answer with the Iron Authority.
Yep.
What they want. And potentially be given the Tetrarch. Because what they wanted was for that cube to break. Potentially. But it seems like in the history that was presented to us, briefly, that the Iron Authority is responsible for the collapse of these other cities. In one way or another.
Right.
And if that's the case, and they wanted the cube broken, then they would have done it already. Presumably. Unless it is lost to them.
Yeah.
Because of the betrayer gods. That whatever pact or covenant that united the gods in whatever this cube represents, the defeating of the primordials, or the pulling of Exandria out of the elemental planes, that because they betrayed that covenant, their servants cannot open it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of why they wouldn't have. So I don't know, and it may be like I'm trying to think what angle the betrayer gods have on wanting that to be broken, or wanting the Heart City to fall.
I don't think the betrayer gods necessarily do, but the Durgar or the Iron Authority may worship the betrayer gods, but that could have also devolved when the gods stopped showing up as much, especially, being behind the divine gate.
Yeah.
And centuries of religion turned.
So the potential motive is break the seal, primordials come back, the gods are willing to break the divine gate.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be something that both sides...
Yeah, I mean, it could be that the religion is devolved into, we need the betrayer gods back. Oh, they'll come back from the divine gate if we do this.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see if that's the case.
Honestly, wildest speculation I have, they're going to find Ted. Where they're going is going to be where Ted ended up. That's why Opal is the one being singled out.
That would make sense. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
And it could even feed into your family tree lineage in that they need both the twins to do this, whatever.
Mm.
Like a double sacrifice or something.
Yeah.
Or a sacrifice of a spirit in two bodies. What people could think of twins.
Yeah.
Depending on the culture. But that's my gonna throw my hat in the ring. They're gonna find Ted.
Well, that's better than would Abria treat Matt to the Tarrasque. That just popped into my head. But we already failed on the Tarrasque on one campaign, so.
If that was going to happen, it would not be third level.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to fight it. It just, like, the denouement of the episode, the Iron Authority is gloating over haha you, and then just credits. Because that gives Matt carte blanche to use it whenever he wants. Without a big build-up.
Yeah.
But anyway, we will find out on Thursday, and we will see you guys here next Tuesday.
I guess.